Hi there, this is Caroline with Value Ayurveda. Today I'm going to take a moment to show you how to make chapatis. So chapatis are like a flatbread, and what I love about them is they're really simple. They only require a few ingredients, and you can cook them just on your stove top, so you don't need to bake them. For the ingredients, what you'll need is a flour. So I'm going to use a blend of a whole wheat flour and then also buckwheat flour. I'm going to do about 75% whole wheat flour and about 25% buckwheat flour. I'll talk about that in a moment. You need salt. So I have here just a mineral salt that I keep on hand. You want to have some water and then also an oil. I'm going to be using coconut oil today, but you could use ghee, sunflower oil. Those are nice, particularly for the summertime. So we'll take a measuring cup. I have a 1 cup measurement here. And I'm going to put in the buckwheat flour first. And I'm only going to put in about a quarter of the way full with the buckwheat flour. So buckwheat flour is nice. It's a nice alternative to use. One thing about it is if you're familiar with Ayurveda, if you have a lot of pitta in you, or maybe if you're like a pitta vata, buckwheat flour is not going to be the best option. Rather, a whole wheat flour or just a wheat flour is going to be better. I like to mix them together. I think it's a nice balance. So I would never do it with primarily buckwheat flour, but that's just for me and my own constitution and those the people in my household. Here we are. So we're doing a cup here, and I'm not really big on exact measurements, so about a cup of flour here with a buckwheat mixed in. Some other ones that are nice to do is teff flour is really great. So teff is a grain from Ethiopia, but you can, Bob's Red Mill, which is the brand I have here of the buckwheat flour, they make a nice teff flour. And what's nice about it is when you make the chapatis, they have a little bit of sponginess, a little bit of nice texture to them. You could also do like a rice flour if you like, or other types of flour. So I have a mixing bowl here. So I've just put the flour in the mixing bowl. Next I'm gonna add some salt. So doing a cup of flour. So I'm gonna do about 2 good, well actually I'll do 3 nice pinches of salt. And then I'm going to use my hand just to mix that around. When you're mixing the dough with your hands, the recommendation is to keep your fingers together rather than spread apart. So you're almost, imagine like a large spatula, you're creating that with your hands. I'm only adding salt to this chapati, to this dough, but you can add other spices. One of my favorite, I love to add cardamom whenever I'm making chapatis. Particularly, I like when I'm having something savory, like if I make a chapati with a dinner, like for dinner time, to go with, let's say, like beans and some different vegetables and such. I like the combination of cardamom with those other savory flavors. I think it's really nice. And it's particularly good for, well, it's pretty good for most of your doshas, but definitely for vata, the cardamom is going to be nice. It's pretty good for pitta as well. Next I'm going to take coconut oil, and I have a spoon here. We're going to eye this a little bit, eyeball it a little bit. I'm going to do sort of, I'm going to do about 4 spoonfuls. And this is not a tablespoon by any means of what I'm putting in, but I'm just going to show you here quickly what it kind of looks like on my end. Okay, and then I'm going to add some water. Okay, and again, I'm not measuring. I'm going to just eyeball this, and that's why I don't put the flour up, so that if I make it too wet and if I need to add a little bit more flour, I can do so. All right, so I've added some water here, so you can see what it looks like. And then I'm going to take my hand and start mixing. Before I get my hands too dirty, I am going to put my stove on just about to a medium heat here. Okay. And I think this is pretty good actually in terms of the amount of liquid. As you're mixing the dough together, you want it to start to form like into one big ball. The reason, if you have, for example, if you're mixing the dough and it's cutting out into almost like a lot of little pieces, it's not sticking together very well, but it seems like you have enough liquid, like in terms of water, that's usually a sign that you need a little bit more oil. So the oil is really what's going to help it to stick together. I mean, the water does that too, but the oil is definitely going to help. So if you're having trouble getting it to stick together into a ball, that's a sign that you might need a little bit more oil added. Okay, and so mine, this is pretty good. It's actually come together quite quickly. Let's see here. All right, so it's come together pretty quickly. It's a little sticky, okay? So I'm gonna just add a little bit of flour here. So you wanna keep your flour nearby. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit here. All right. Just to get it off my fingers. Okay, great. So once we've done this, we can go ahead and start forming our chapatis. If you have time, like if you want to make these, if you're making it with something else, feel free to put the dough, like form the dough, maybe put a lid on it and then let it sit for like 20-30 minutes. That's not going to hurt anything. So I'm going to set this to the side. Get a plate. Actually, I'm going to have 2 plates here. So I have one plate where I can put the chapatis I'm going to be making before they're cooked, and then another plate after I cook them. I like to put them on a different plate. Okay, so what I have here, I'm going to put my camera down so you won't see my face, but you'll see what's happening. Okay, so I've got a cutting board here, and I'm going to take my small measuring cup and just sprinkle the cutting board with some flour, okay? And then I'm going to take my dough here and I'm going to pinch off a piece. We're thinking about the size of a golf ball, okay? So it's about a golf ball size. Take it into a ball with my hands and then put it onto the cutting board, and you're going to smash it down once with the palm of your hand. Flip it over so that it picks up some of that flour. Smash it down once again, okay? And then I normally just kind of flip it over again, spread the flour. And then you're going to take your rolling pin and you'll roll once forward, once back. I always flip it over and then rotate it. Roll once forward and once back. Okay, so what we have here is we end up with this nice chapati. So it's pretty thin. You can see how thin it is. It's not a perfect circle. I never make perfect circles, but I like them that way. I think that they're delicious in their own funny shapes. And that's just the process. I always add just a little bit of flour. I'm gonna take about a golf ball size, bring it to the cutting board, smash it down once again, and then I'll roll out forwards, roll out backwards, flip it over, roll out forwards, and then roll out backwards. So where I am right now is really hot. My kitchen is quite hot. And if you put a lot of these chapatis together that haven't been cooked yet onto a plate, stacking them on top of each other, they might start to stick together. So that's why I just put some extra flour down in between them just to help that process, okay? So when it comes to measurements, what you'll notice is I measured out a cup of flour in total, but I keep adding some. So I would probably say in the end, you probably use 2 cups of flour, a cup that you're putting into your mixing bowl, and then about another cup that goes into this process here of putting things onto the cutting board. So not exact measurements. All right. So I can feel the heat coming off my pan on the stove. So what I'm going to do is, as I continue rolling these out, I'm going to go ahead and start the cooking process a little bit. I have still nearby that same spoon that I used for putting the oil into the mixing cup. Okay, so I have that same one right here. And what I'm going to do is just take just a tiny bit, and I'm going to put it on to my pan, just a few little drops. And I'm going to take one of my chapatis and put it down. Okay, so I see it sizzling pretty quickly. I'm going to actually slide it over and make room for another one. Okay, I think you can see that. So we have just the 2 chapatis on the pan. I'm going to let those cook. Sometimes the first ones take a little bit longer, but in general, they normally just take about 1 to 2 minutes per side. So using a cup of flour in total, in general, it kind of depends on the size you make, but it tends to make about 6 chapatis, okay, based on the size that I'm rolling out here. So I have my last one I'm going to roll out right now. Okay. Because there's a lot of extra flour here, that, you know, there's extra flour on the outside of the chapatis before they're being cooked. Sometimes they cause a little bit of smoke on your pan. So that's one thing just to be careful of, just to watch out for. I'm going to move, let's see, I'm gonna move the camera just a little bit closer. Okay, so you can see here. So these are cooking pretty well. There's a little bit of coloration. Some of that's from the oil that was on the pan. I'm going to give them another minute or two, and then I will flip them over. Just grab a fork here. Just use a fork to flip them over. What will happen is they'll start to puff up a little bit. So I can already see, it's hard to see on the camera, but this is starting to puff up just a little bit. Just flip one over. And I usually just kind of use my hands here, okay? Yeah, so there's not a lot of change in terms of the color, but the texture, like it really only takes just a minute or two on each side for them to cook. We'll give it just another minute. And again, I'm on a medium heat here. But even this one, I can see it starting to puff up a little bit. So this is the chapati dough. Once you start using it and you get familiar with it, it's a great segue into making other really delicious treats. One of my favorites is making empanadas. So basically you'd roll out your dough the same way that we've done here, and then you choose a filling, whatever kind of filling that you like, and you would put that filling on one side, and then you'd fold over your dough and then use a fork, like the sort of edges of a fork to smash down your empanada. Okay, and then I usually normally bake those, but I've also made them this way on the stovetop. But I prefer the result when baking. Okay, so these are good. I'm gonna add just, I like to add just a little bit of oil to the pan, so maybe you can see that a little bit better here. It's just like little sprinkles that I'm doing. Okay, yeah. And that's it. So we have a chapati. Oh, these are hot. And you can eat them just like this. You can eat them, sometimes I eat them like a taco instead of a tortilla, stuff them with vegetables and beans and eat them that way. They're delicious if you made like a fresh soup or freshly made soup and dipping that inside. So there's lots of different options. So I hope you give it a try. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, let me know. Or if you've tried a recipe, maybe something, a combination I haven't mentioned, I would love to hear about it. Take care. Namaste.